Hey guys, it's Matt. Before we dive into the nonsense I'm showing you now, and if you're driving or at work, I don't think there'll be any other images. I'll read this to you. Proofs of conspiracy against all the religions and governments of Europe. Oh, Matt, is this saying they've been playing us the same way for hundreds or thousands of years? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get to this. I don't know who John Robison is. I don't really care, but we'll cover this in a few minutes. I want to just have one last mini conversation about what happened yesterday, share with you what happened in Munchkinland last night. Here, I live in Munchkinland. If you didn't see the videos of yesterday, the manhunt. They caught the son of a beach. Okay, they got him. You would think I literally live in Munchkinland. I'm not joking. The way that the local news presented it, there's some massive hurricane bearing down that could turn left into Maine and have some gigantic wall of storm surge and everything. Oh, that's nothing. They caught one guy here running around the woods naked like a wood sprite in Chester County. You would think World War II just came to an end, the way the local news presentation was last night. Munchkinland itself, presented in the movie The Wizard of Oz, could not have been any more joyous from the death of the Wicked Witch of the West than my county outside Philadelphia was last night, Chester County. You would have think the news literally shown Cavalcante's legs stuck under a house with long striped stockings, and somebody went and removed his Converse All-Stars, removed his boots or something, and his legs curled up, just like was it the Wicked Witch of the East or whatever? You would have thought that happened here. The way people, we're free again. People here for one night believed what Martin Luther King Jr., the King, was talking about this county in 2023. Free at last, That's us, man. We can actually go out to the mailboxes again and not have to look over our shoulder or run to and fro from our garages. 5 minutes of the local news, then 10 minutes of local news, and then 15 minutes of local news. Where's sports and weather? Isn't there a giant hurricane that could turn left and bear down on Maine and destroy the entire coast of Maine because it's so massive? What about that? And people in their homes like, shut up! I want to hear more about Daniel Cavalcante. Mommy, I want to hear about Daniel Cavalcante. I want to hear about the Wicked Witch of the East. I'm done with this local news. ABC Channel 6 Action News only showed 20 minutes of Cavalcante. I'm going to CBS 3 for good. They suck, Action News. I want Cavalcante. This world's a joke. Sometimes I think the Henry Kissinger types that are working on behalf of the screen in dark reality and Notnilc, I think they do sometimes sit around in their smoking lounges and they just shake their heads at the stupidity. And they can't believe the little resources that they have to employ to get the results they want. Like maybe the smoking room last night. Henry Kissinger and his ilk, they got their feet up on $40,000 leather couches and they're like, we put like 2 counties of the Philadelphia suburbs into basically like lockdown, into total fear and paralyses. And we didn't have to play our cards. We didn't have to show our real hand. It's like winning poker over and over and over again. Like, what do you got? I don't know, 2 twos. They don't have to have a full house. They don't have to have a flush, whatever that is. They keep winning poker hands and like, well, we have all of these other decks. We have Rain Man here to count the cards. We could put aces forth. We could put a full house forth, but we don't even have to. We had one guy that they said running around the woods of Chester County naked like a wood sprite. Like, what is it? Like Robin Goodfellow or some Robin Goodfellow. The only thing I know about a Shakespeare play is what's been presented in a movie. I didn't read that shit myself. I saw it in Dead Poets Society. That's all I know about Robin Goodfellow. How you think I'd read that myself? Shit. That's all they need to do. It's like, look, they just sit around the smoking room shaking their heads like, we don't even have to do anything anymore to move society the way we want with these dumb sons of bitches. Look, I don't expect people to be like us, but sometimes I hope they'd meet us halfway. For example, I don't think they're supposed to look at the story as we would and see, well, there's a problem with the story here. This looks fishy. This looks funny. I don't expect that from my uncles and cousins and aunts and uncles, but at least they could like meet us halfway and say, okay, I know there's this guy running around, but it's not going to change my life. I know that there's a guy running around, but we have to send the kids to school. I'm not going to just lock myself away and wait for one guy to be captured. I'm going to live my life. Pam's not going to cancel the hikes and all this stuff. She has a little hiking group she puts together. But no, they cannot go halfway. They have to bow down to the full extent of what the Notnilc wants. All right, let's move on to this nonsense I'm showing on the screen now. 1797. Isn't that the date when Matt Damon in that courtroom in Good Will Hunting referenced like Proverbs from the Plymouth pulpit or something? 1797. Proofs of a conspiracy against all the religions and governments of Europe. All of them? It says here, all of them? All the religions and all the governments of... Okay, continuing. Carried on in the secret meetings of the Freemasons and the Aluminum Ducati, don't want a banner ad, and the reading societies. Holy shit, Matt, is there another Sith that we didn't know about, the reading societies? I thought it was just when these sons of bitches came into my elementary school called Riff. Reading is fundamental. They tried to pass out their decrepit and moth-eaten books. I don't want that shit, that Nancy Drew horse shit. They tried to push it in my hands. I don't want it. It's free. Take it. It's free. I don't care if you pay me to take Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. Get your riff shit out. What is the reading societies? Sounds creepy. Continuing to read. Collected from good authorities by John Robison, A.M., Professor of Natural Philosophy and Secretary to the Royal... Oh, no. Professor of Natural Philosophy and Secretary to the Royal Society of Edinburgh. Oh, see, here's how... They didn't know back then, I guess. If you're associated with the Royal Society of Edinburgh, then you ain't going to expose no conspiracy. You ain't working for us. You're working for them. What's this thing? Collected from good authorities. Come on, sir. Is that your bibliography? Is that your reference list? You just say, well, how do you know this? Well, on good authority. Well, who's that? Give me some names. What a bunch of horse shit. John Robison, A.M. Is that your title? What is it? Asshole monumentus. What is A.M., dude? You should be ashamed of yourself, sir. Like Ben Affleck said doing that interview on behalf of Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting, before he said, retainer, he said, you suspect. John Robison, you suspect. I don't care to read. Matt, you didn't even read this document. Of course I didn't read this document. I wouldn't read one word of this horse shit. Somehow, they're trying to play certain groups the same way they're trying to play us. I guess it happens decade after decade, century after century. Oh, there's a big conspiracy, and you blame these people. This is obviously a document, 1797, Proverbs from the Plymouth pulpit, to get people to blame the Freemasons. Have we ever talked about that before? Put the blame on the Aluminum Ducati. Blame, in this case, the reading societies, evolved into Riff. If you can blame these groups of men, is it the same old trick? Then you can take real people away from the real culprit, which is basically the dark reality itself. What's happening in the reality itself, Notnilc, things that can't be seen. You try to read this book and you think John Robison's working for you. You spend 2 decades on this proof of conspiracy horse shit. In 1797, the people that read this, guess what, are not doing what they're supposed to be doing in life. Matt, it's not playing the same exact playbook. Yeah, it is. Over and over and over again. All right, let's take a close look at the Wikipedia, at least, for this good man, John Robison, who, of course, is working for you, the people. He's exposing everything you see in this book or this white paper, Proofs of Conspiracy. Who would possibly believe that he's in league with the Royals or in league with Adam Weishaupt or in league with the people he's actually trying to rail against? Who would possibly think that? Matt, you didn't read one word and you're coming to that conclusion? Of course I am. I don't need to read one word, sir. John Robison, born 1739, died 1805, was a British physicist and mathematician. He was a professor of natural philosophy, the precursor of natural science. Who cares? Why'd you add that in? I don't care about either one of them. He worked at the University of Edinburgh Edinburgh. I still don't know how to say the damn thing. I can get closer than my dad. My dad and I, we had a debate 5 years ago. It's Edinburgh. Berg. I said, what? He said, well, Matt, we got Pittsburgh. We got Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's obviously Edinburgh. And then I was wrong in arguing back. Well, I do it, and people that think they're real smart in the U.S. say B-O-R-O, like a borough. Edinburgh. No, Dad, it's Edinburgh. And the people over there laugh. It was like, you just like, Edinburgh. You don't even know what they're saying at the end. Even Edinburgh, and that's wrong. But he wasn't right with Berg. Anyway, sorry. A member of the Edinburgh Philosophical Society, when it received its royal warrant, he was appointed as the first general secretary to the Royal Society of Edinburgh, 1783 to 98. Oh, no. You see, if he was a secretary of a royal society, then see, you don't have to read a single word. There's no possible way what he's putting out is exposing anything. I don't blame the people back then. They didn't have Fromers. They didn't have one millionth of what we have to work with. They couldn't realize this guy, if he's trying to create this conspiracy or push all the blame on certain groups on behalf of the groups themselves or the royals, he goes to Benjamin Franklin, who puts his printing press together, and he goes, we're going to put this white paper out, this book, Proofs of Conspiracy, and they handed it out to the people, and the people said, oh, this guy's exposing the Freemasons and the Aluminum Ducati, and he's exposing the Reading is Fundamental reading societies, and they handed this shit out. People didn't look down and say, well, wait a second. It says here, you're part of the Royal Society. This is horse shit. Nobody took a look at this paper and stood up and said, this guy that claims to have written it, he must be involved because he's part of this Royal Society. You can't have it both ways. You can't be inside the Hells Angels and writing a book trying to expose the Hells Angels. That don't work out. You understand? If it was anything was legitimate about it and he really did start writing this shit to expose something or to help the people and he was inside the group, they would have put him on that rack so fast. You can't write a book exposing the Hells Angels, sir, if you're petitioning to be its president. Even though I know bullshit like this has to be part of the Notnilc trick without even reading one word, if I only put out like one video a week, I'd take a look at it for a day or so. It'd be just because of the boldness of the accusation right off the start. Like, how's he going to back this up? Proofs of a conspiracy. Was he point out one or two governments or a few people? No, it says against all religions, against all governments. All governments? Even little Latvia? Leave little Belarus alone. Did that exist in 1797? Belarus? They ain't part of it. Leave these little governments. No, he says all religions and all governments. And facilitated, of course, here we go again, by the Freemasons and the Aluminum Ducati and the secret societies, which I guess here are the reading societies, and the reading is fundamental. Matt, it looks like they're playing the same playbook back then in 1797 that they're basically doing to the idiot truth community now. Exactamundo. The only difference is today they do a little better job hiding that the person trying to put the white paper out of the book exposing the corruption is not actually part of the corruption. They do a tiny little bit better job of that today. Back then you could see the dude's right in the Royal Society trying to call out the Royal Society. It doesn't make no sense. Now they'll use somebody like Ron Paul. Now he's in Congress working for you. You don't think he's railing against the Fed, Ron Paul and Rand Paul? They still, who knows what they're doing? I don't follow that shit anymore, but that was the big people on our side when I was fooled back in 2010, 11, 12. Oh, if Ron Paul or Rand Paul could get some real power, then we could get that pickup truck army and take all the bad people to jail. They're railing and raving and ranting about the Fed, that it needs to be audited and exposed. And it's like, oh, you put this guy out front. Oh, then he's supposed to be believed that he really cares about exposing it. Oh, I see. I see how that works. But he's generally part of the same system inside its government that it paid for. Oh, I see. Okay, I'll be quiet and shut up now. Okay, on Wikipedia, if you scroll down, there is more detail on this Proofs of a Conspiracy. Towards the end of his life, he published Proofs of a Conspiracy in 1797, alleging clandestine intrigue by the Aluminum Ducati and Freemasons. The work's full title was Proofs of a Conspiracy Against All Religions and Governments of Europe, carried on in the secret meetings of Freemasons, Aluminum, Ducati, and reading societies. The secret agent monk, Alexander Horn, provided much of the material for Robison's allegations. French priest Abbé Borel, independently developed similar views that the Aluminum Ducati motorcycle had infiltrated continental Freemasonry, leading to the excesses of the French Revolution. In 1798, the Reverend G.W. Snyder Pretzels sent Robison's book to George Washington, for his thoughts on the subject, in which he replied to him in a letter. I'll read the letter and get back to you guys. I'm afraid to read it. I'm back 5 minutes later. I've read it 3 times. I still don't truly understand exactly what's being said, especially in the last section. So I'll just read what George Washington replied back to George Snyder with, and we'll try to do this together, and I'll interpret each section for you the best that I can. Okay. Remember, this guy Robison's putting out that, oh my gosh, there's this conspiracy spreading through the Freemasons, all the governments of Europe are involved, all the religions, and eventually this guy, Reverend Snyder Pretzels, gets this damn paper to George Washington. And Washington replies back to the Pretzel man, "It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Aluminum Ducati and the principles of Jacobinism, the Jacobites, had not spread in the United States." Okay, translation. He's saying, hey, don't get me wrong. I'm not doubting that these bad things are spreading around the U.S. They probably are, like you say. Okay, that's what George is saying. On the contrary, no one is more fully satisfied of this than I am. Okay, again, he's saying, I'm completely convinced that you're right. Some of these bad things are spreading around the U.S., okay? I don't like the way he puts this. On the contrary, no one is more satisfied or truly satisfied of this. That implies he likes that it's spreading around, but we'll give him a pass, I guess. The idea that I meant to convey was that I did not believe that the lodges of Freemasons in this country, in the United States, had, as societies, endeavored to propagate the diabolical tenets of the first, or pernicious principles of the latter. Okay, basically saying that bad shit's spreading around, and the idea I meant to convey was he's taking a position up in defense of the lodges of Freemasonry in this country, because of course he is one. He's saying, no, it's all spreading around bad, but I'm saying the lodges here, George is saying, the societies here, they're not doing that bad shit. I can vouch for them. That's what he's saying. And the last part is nobody can understand. George, shouldn't your right to be understood, buddy? We'll just try the best we can. The last sentence, that individuals of them may have done it, or that the founder or instrument employed to found the democratic societies in the United States may have had these objects, and actually had a separation of the people from their government in view, is too evident to be questioned. Okay, what he's basically saying here, in my opinion, is the democratic system set up here is too strong for it to affect anything, if whatever's spreading around. The first part kind of gives it away. That individuals of them may have done it, saying a few bad apples may be doing it, but see, our systems here in the U.S., this whole system we set up with representation, it's so strong that whatever bad stuff spreads around, whatever you're talking about in this paper going around Europe, it's not going to affect us. That's what he's saying. The part that can't be overlooked are the first 2 sentences. He's saying, I have no doubt that the doctrines of the Aluminum Ducati and the principles of the Jacobites are spreading. He has no doubt these doctrines are spreading around the U.S. and everything bad in your little white paper is spreading around the U.S. He said, I have no doubt. I don't like the second sentence either. On the contrary, no one is more satisfied of this fact than I am. What is that conveying to the reader if the note were to be intercepted? The word satisfied as an adjective, to be contented or pleased. Let's put the new definition in. It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Aluminum Ducati motorcycle and the principles of the Jacobites are not spreading all over this country. On the contrary, no one is more truly pleased or contented of this fact than I am. Uh-oh. See, they didn't got no encryption back in the day. They got the paper, they got the ink, the feather, and the envelope and that waxy shit. You put your wax on it and you put your thumbprint on it and burn your thumb. Or the rich people had their little stamp, they put their stamp but I'm sure the technology probably exists. If you want to get that wax off, you can get that wax off and put it back on. I don't think that was beyond certain people's means back then. So if you wrote a letter, the point is you had to assume that son of a bitch is going to get intercepted. And see, if George, there's those pictures of he's wearing all that Freemason stuff, right? You have to write in a certain way so the proper interpretation would be interpreted properly. Did I just say that? If the damn letter was intercepted. And I don't know, Mike reads the damn memos of Billy Shears and all that shit, and there's like double speak and triple speak and read it up and down. All that. They had all that shit. So I don't like that second line. Could be interpreted as, yeah, this Jacobite shit spreading all over the U.S. I'm quite pleased about it. I ain't going out on a limb saying he might be saying that. Continuing to read, last section, modern conspiracy theorists, oh boy, such as Nesta Webster, whoever that is, and William Guy Carr, whoever that is. If they're modern-day conspiracy theorists, shouldn't Matt have heard of them? They believe the methods of the aluminum Ducati described in Proofs of a Conspiracy were copied by radical groups throughout the 19th and 20th centuries in their subversion of benign organizations. You're only assuming they're benign. Spiritual, blah, 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 skip. At the end, Brooke suggests that the New World Bot, I'm reading from a Wikipedia article. I don't want no banner ad. Brooke suggests that the New World Order, of which Robison believed Adam Weishaupt, founder of the aluminum Ducati, had in part accomplished through the infiltration of Freemasonry, will now be completed by those holding sway over the international banking system by means of the Rothschild banks, U.S. Federal Reserve, International Monetary Fund, and World Bank. What a mouthful. Let me interpret that bullshit for you guys the best that I can, but I need a damn minute and a drink of water. Okay, it's multi-layered as usual. I mean, no real world could keep doing this over and over. No group of men is that smart. If they take their frequency directly from the Notnilc, they are. But on their own, they're not. I mean, here we go. Basically, it's saying that this book we've been looking at, Proofs of a Conspiracy, 1797, whether it's true or not about the religions and the governments of Europe, whether it's true or not, whatever, certain dark groups got their hands on it, and they used its playbook. They used its methods, and they actually used it to create the bad systems that modern-day conspiracy theorists today say exist, like the World Blank Health and the NW Blank and the banking and the Fed and it was so again level one is no matter if it's true or not, these dark groups used it and there's some merit to that. Part two, someone may come along and try to read between the lines and say what was put out in 1797 was never meant to expose anything about that era. It was meant to be a worldwide playbook for what would happen over the next 200 years and was used as a playbook. Guys, this is just another example of how genius this asshole Dark is at drawing us back into the weeds by providing different layers of interpretation depending on your sophistication, not as a truther, but as somebody that's like separating from reality itself. Yet no real world could keep pulling this off to such precision. It's impossible. We have thousands of these. Even this, in a different layer of interpretation, one questions the intentions. What were the real intentions of Washington here? What is being said? Yeah, I alluded to that earlier. It's fun to do that. But we'd completely get out of the weeds, throw it all away. If any layer of interpretation of what's going on here is playing its game and is false, we know that now. I'm going to pause. I don't know exactly how to end this, but there's some significant conclusions that can come out of this just one more exercise. Have you ever heard of this book? Or maybe you have, or white paper, but how it's presented in Wikipedia and the different layers that I just examined it with those lenses. It's so genius at keeping us in the bog. The only way out is to see in general what's going on here. And fortunately for us, it's the same damn ruse every single time. Okay, I sat here for a few minutes. These ideas are better presented in the book chapters, of course, but I'll do the best I can related specifically to what we've been looking at. Okay, guys, how do we do this? I am 100% sure, you may disagree, I'm 100% sure, and I don't think I'll ever move off this, that if there is a famous research element inside the truth community, that it is 100% bullshit and put there intentionally to be part of the trick. The best way to start talking about this, and then we'll relate it back to the things we just looked at, is this. Remember that guy, Yuri Breznikov? Whatever. We all know, we've all seen the little interviews, and he's talked about, and he's such a hero. Matt, don't you know? This Yuri Breznikov was ex-KGB, and he gave these interviews, and he exposed how the subversion and the infiltration and the corruption of the West, and how a Western society can be taken down, or whatever he talked about. Here's the point. It's very simple. That, if it's so famous inside our truth community, is 100% bullshit, part of the Notnilc trick, even if Yuri himself is not aware of it. Even if there really was a guy named Yuri who was really trying his best and really believed he was taking a risk and really believed he was giving away KGB secrets, and he felt that his life was in jeopardy because he was taking these risks, talking about such things. See, if you back up far enough and look down at the reality, it doesn't even matter whether he was a plant and he knew he was an actor and it was all bullshit, or he was really trying. From the Notnilc's perspective and what it's trying to do to us, it doesn't even matter. Still, you have to come to the same conclusion, in my opinion. It's absolute bullshit and intended to be there per whatever the Notnilc's trying to do to us. Now, this is the case, in my opinion, with almost everything. I am tired of hearing about the Adam Weishaupt story. How many times in our truth research over the past 15 years have we come across that, oh my gosh, also in 1776, what a coincidence, this Adam Weishaupt was reestablishing the Bavarian aluminum Ducati throughout Europe and trying to extend that in the United States. Guys, let me back up. It's very simple in my opinion. You may disagree with my opinion, but I'm 100% on this, and I don't think I'll ever move off it. If a story is so big and so prominent in our research, it's 100% bullshit, meaning it's part of the Notnilc trick, whether it's true or not. Okay, in this case, who knows? It's total bullshit to me. But what I'm saying is I'm going farther than this, and this is hard for me to talk about. It's hard for some of you to even wrap your head around. Even if there's a guy that was really named Adam Weishaupt or whatever, and he really did reestablish the Bavarian motorcycle company, the aluminum Ducati, and it really happened, it's still part of exactly what the Notnilc wanted and the 100-year multi-century trick that it will play out over time. It's not a cop-out to say that it doesn't matter whether it's real or not. I think this is the highest level of understanding, to say it doesn't matter whether it really happened or not, whether Yuri really had good intentions. That the hardest thing to do is to realize the way this reality works and how adept this asshole Dark is and what we're dealing with here, and how expert it is at drawing us back into the weeds. And no, it's not the second layer. It's the third layer. No, when you look at The Wizard of Oz, that second layer is Frank L. Baum or whatever is L. Frank Baum. And who puts a letter before their name? I never understood that. He was trying, the Dorothy's slippers were silver. He was making a statement about sound money, Matt, and against fiat currency. Don't you know that? That's second layer. Then third layer, we get in and say, no, Dorothy's talking about existence itself and the dream and going back home and the way we're interpreting it now. And I think there is a lot of truth in that highest level of spiritual interpretation. But in terms of how it puts these layers in all the time, even in terms of what we just looked at, no real world could pull this off. But somehow the first grade truthers think it's just secret societies pulling it off to perfection, men in smoking rooms having their Subway sandwiches brought in, and every single time, thousands of times in a row, they're getting away with it perfectly. And there's nothing else going on but dark rooms. This is the height of first grade truthism. We're going to introduce that. First grade truthism. So to get out of first through, say, 8th grade and move on to truth or high school. It's like a truth or Greece or something. You just throw out every single famous story that we've ever investigated or we've ever heard presented in truth videos. Throw them all out. Every single one is bullshit, even if there's truth to it. Okay, that's the key here. We'll revisit that later. But for example, how many times have we heard that stupid-ass story that, well, don't you know, Matt, how the Rothschilds got all their money? Was it the Battle of Waterloo with Napoleon? They had their riders ready to go, and their riders took off. They knew the battle outcome. They knew Napoleon had been put down, but then they said Napoleon won, and all the stocks crashed, and then the Rothschilds bought it all. When these stories, folks, are so prominent inside our truth community, whether you disagree or agree with my final interpretation or not, this is 100%. This story of Adam Weishaupt in 1776 and Uri, there's so many of these. When the story is so prominent, just begging for our attention, like that rabbit that wants to be chased, jumping up on our lap, we know it's 100% bullshit. Even if there's truth to it, that's where I'm taking it, it's still part of the reality trick, and all of it is to be thrown out. Even most of my book is to be thrown out as we proceed with part 2 for the rest of our lives. Okay, here's the conclusion. And to anybody that's not the old guard, this will sound absolutely insane to you. So this is, in terms of looking down at the dark reality, not from 100,000 feet anymore, from 10 miles looking down. Most of this presentation has been about this new book, or whatever this thing was, written by John Robison, Proofs of Conspiracy Against All Religions and Governments in Europe. All right, number 1, what are the chances someone in my position has never heard of this book before? This has never been presented to me. I've never heard it presented in a video, nothing. Now, am I all-seeing, all-knowing? Oh, no, but what are the chances, doing what I do, this has never ever crossed my path before? Meaning, somebody saying it could be a retrocausality, it's all possible. It doesn't really matter whether those things exist or not. It could be a retrocausality. I'm saying that it was brought to my attention via something, a few clicks. I was looking at a certain video or something got my attention, and I clicked on it, and this was only a small part of what I was looking at. This was not the focus of the video or at all, just a few seconds in passing. And I went, well, what is this? Proof of conspiracy throughout all religions and government. First off, I think, how come I've never heard of this before? So then I dive into it. And we definitely got into the weeds regarding or about it just 10 minutes ago. But what I'm saying is this dark reality is so adept, I was meant to see it. I don't know how it does this. It wanted me. It doesn't want me doing what I'm doing now and taking this interpretation, that it is simply one more yellow breadcrumb in its sea of bullshit. It wanted desperately for me to spend more time on the Wikipedia and in more time breaking down what George may have written about it, or how it was used as a playbook for 2 centuries of infiltration. Oh, it dangled it out there, and it somehow knew that I would find it, but it doesn't want the approach I'm taking now. And then when you go back to it, what we just did 15 minutes ago, it's different layers of interpretation, and it doesn't matter what layer is correct from its perspective as long as you are inside its sandwich, inside the bread, in a layer of any kind. That's why, how come this truth program can give away so much, yet we know that person's a shill? Because it doesn't matter as long as you're spending time there. I don't think it wants the interpretation that I'm putting out now, that somehow this dark reality wanted me to see it. It got me interested in it, no doubt about it. And that's what we've been doing for the past 30 minutes. But I don't think at the end of the day it wants me saying this is no different than any other piece of bullshit it's ever thrown at us. It might have created this bullshit this morning, even though it said 1796. It could be a retrocausality. This reality could be 1,000 times more fluid than we possibly can imagine. You may have a memory of reading about it in high school. That still doesn't mean it's not a retrocausality, because that's the way the Mandela effect works. Or when a retrocausal action happens, it ripples back through time. You'll remember reading about it in high school. I know that sounds okay. Now we're getting really in the weeds, and Matt, that's a really desperate rationalization. Okay, whatever, however you want to interpret that. But I don't take for granted that everything is so fixed and solid. I see this reality as capable of doing all this sorts of bullshit and throwing all these sorts of weird things at us. It doesn't matter if my interpretation is correct, that it wanted me to see this, and it wanted me to go back and analyze it. The famous line from Shawshank is, Andy had to crawl through a river of shit to come out clean on the other side. So I'm looking at the time here, 35 minutes in. Basically, we've been in the weeds for roughly 30 minutes of this presentation. We crawled through a river of shit to come out clean on the other side. Coming out clean on the other side is saying it's all bullshit. It all is there to keep you from part 2, doing what you're supposed to do in life. It all needs to be thrown away. There's no point in analyzing anything that comes from the screen. Well, Matt, why did you just put us back there for 30 minutes? Because my job is to teach high school. I'm tired of saying the same thing to these people that if you're ready to graduate, graduate. I don't want to lose you. I'll try to do a Melvin and Bezzo to keep you, but I can't. I go into the weeds and I bring the first grade and the fifth grade and the ninth grade truther towards a graduation. You will see at some point everything here is all bullshit. Okay, the manhunt yesterday, right? The manhunt. What I'm saying is, can you go this far with me? Even if every element is real, it's fake. Does that make any sense to you? Maybe it'll take me a while to describe that. Even if there really was a guy who really escaped, and the warden, and nobody had any, and he didn't get any help, and there was no black ops involved, and even if it was all real, every bit of it, per what you interpret as real, it's somehow the reality is seeing to this, somehow, call it the download frequency radio station. I'm saying even if it's real, it's fake. When you have separated far enough from reality, this is why there's 2 different realities between me and my friend Tony. It's not like he just can't see the truth. That's wrong. We've been wrong in not understanding why people can't see. They're per certain definitions, they're literally in a different reality. We are not. We are breaking away from it. Jesus, what is this? Okay, we'll talk about this more in the future, but at this point, I don't think I'll ever move off these basic positions that everything that comes from screen reality is part of the same bullshit trick. And I mean everything, even if certain elements are what you would consider completely real. And the only thing we have to do is one sentence: continue to separate from it and metaphysically separate from it. I don't know what the process is or what's going on behind the scenes, but that's why it continuously looks more ridiculous to us. It doesn't look ridiculous to those on the ship of fools. It only looks ridiculous to us because we are, give me another term, metaphysically separating, and the ship is getting farther and farther away. There is nothing here to be researched. Nothing that possibly can be researched. Nothing that you can look into where you could ever possibly trust the research you're doing or wherever the information's coming from, if it's coming from the outer part of the screen. So it's all about part 2. It's all about leaving all of the trick behind. What I'm about to say is insane to any family member that I have that would stumble upon this video, would be insane to even the first, second, or third grade, or even the fifth grade truther would find this insane. That, Matt, you could see it like a normal, rational person, that amazingly you came across this document. And this document, wow, there's a lot here. I don't think the truth community, Matt, has really explored this. It kind of is a playbook or a map that the dark elements use to infiltrate. And it kind of, that was one of the original playbooks that created the world we have today. And what an incredible find, Matt. And we should spend time on it. And that makes more rational sense to more people. The insane approach is where I'm taking it. That somehow magically a dark reality got me to find this. I don't know how it did it. Matt, you had to click on the damn buttons. I had to click on the button. How did it do it? I don't know, but I was meant to see it in some bizarro way. It was meant to draw me back into its trick, into its investigation. And to me, it backfired. I mean, it backfired from my perspective, because it reminded me once again that it's all bullshit. So thanks, Notnilc, for bringing this bullshit book and paper to my attention, where before I didn't know it existed. I was meant to see it. I'm taking the road less traveled. This would be insane to even most people in our truth community. I don't care. I'm not out to please most people in our truth community. There's a small group here, and we'll move forward in our own little life raft together. Thanks for listening.